everybody. I'd like to call the executive committee meeting for October 3rd to order at 10:22. And Annette Parker, could you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, so our next thing is roll call, Terry.
Parker.
Here.
Balich. Berkowitz.
Here.
Dean Schlottman.
Here.
Freeman. Mueller.
Here.
Pretzel.
Here.
Richmond. Trinier. Van Dyne. Williams. Ogalla.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, we don't have any minutes today. So we're moving on to old business. So you have some support documents. Number 1, FEMA allocations to date. Number 2, FEMA resolution and allocations. And number 3, we have the FEMA funded projects update, capital and building supplies. Mr. Mahoney, I don't see Dave Tack in the room. He doesn't seem to come to the meetings anymore.
Number 3.
Number 3. Yep.
I'm talking to Tim, sorry.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Mike, there you go.
Pull this up here. So going through the projects again, community health center flooring and painting completed, parking lots have been completed, boardroom and chairs and AV have been completed. Loading dock work has been completed, records management roof has been completed, 304 Scott Street is completed. I believe I gave you the final tally on that last month.
Did we get the final on, because I don't have any
I-
actual costs for the
yeah.
loading dock and,
Loading dock was, let's see. I will get you a final number, but it was around 99 or 98, I think, at the end of the day.
all right, so we had allocated like 300,000, so we have
Yep.
like 200,000 left from there.
Yep. And for Scott Street, I think I got you the final number on that, but I'll make sure it's updated on this. I think that was 92.
3632.
There we go. That's it.
63.
Yep.
Nine-
Thank you.
You.
Yeah, and that one we had never had budgeted, we just added that when we moved over maintenance and made those changes.
And then any questions on that front, or I'll move on to ICT.
No, let's talk about the bathrooms.
Okay. Bathrooms, we're still looking for a decent price point. We have gone to 2 people, both the price points is well over the 300,000 that we would be looking to spend on this. So we're going to a third company to see if we can.
So why do you think that is? Is it what we're installing? Are we installing anything special compared to what we have today? I mean, what's the?
No,
difference?
I think it's just, there's a lot of complicating factors on it. But I think we're just going to people who are looking a little more expensive than probably what we need. And then you get add-ons or, trying to think of,
So did
so-
we go out to RFP with that?
no, we did not. We just did some walkthroughs with some people to try to get some price point guesses.
So maybe we should have done an RFP. I mean, it is $300,000
No, we did some, we looked at with some people who had existing contracts with the county, so that's just not going to work for us. So yeah, I think that'll be our next step.
to go out to RFP.
Yep.
Because they're looking at installing things you said that are a little more costly than what we might need. I mean, we just need an
Yeah,
improvement, right?
Exactly. So we're continuing to work on that one, but we're
So
not
why
there
do you
yet.
think you're gonna go out for an RFP then?
I don't have a date for you on that, but I will have one for you.
Okay. And that is for just all the bathrooms
It
in
would
this
be the
building?
stack here, top to bottom.
And then the executive's office?
We wouldn't. probably
not
touch-
changing that?
Yeah, there's those, we probably wouldn't change. And then there's a bathroom in the EMA office we wouldn't change either.
And
So it'd
what
just be
about-
Public facing stack.
And what about the ones downstairs on the first
So
floor?
the 3, so if you, second
They're all
floor,
here?
first floor, basement, they're all stacked.
Oh, and you go all the way down, all 3 floors? Okay, so we're only looking at those 3 floors. Yep, all right, so we should go out for an RFP on that. Since we didn't do that, that's okay. Sound system in the county boardroom, that's done. We finished that. Office. Yeah, I didn't see you, Julie, sorry. Sure.
Okay, so going back many, many years, the recording for the meetings was absolutely excellent. And when people spoke, the camera panned to them. The public was able to see who was speaking, what, and hear what was being said, and you actually felt more like you were actually in the room. The recordings that we have today from our board meetings and our committee meetings are quite poor. Like during the full county board meeting, you can't hear the vote. You don't know who voted, what way they voted. You can't hear anything. You don't see often people speaking, and especially when the public goes up there. When we have residents who go to our WebEx and our recording and they want to see what happened, you really can't make that connection. Quite often people then will have to wait for the minutes and try to read and hope that the minutes have that detail in it. So what do we need to do to go back to that quality of reproduction for the public, for our meetings? Because, yeah.
Yeah, I would say for the votes, I think I'm going to be within a month either way, of April of next year, our WebEx contract, it finally expires with the county. And the system that we purchased here, it allows members to vote on their system. And then if we were to switch from WebEx to another provider, it can show the actual vote tallies for the board meeting.
Well, I actually, I think WebEx has been really dependable, and I don't think it's the WebEx system that we have the problem. Is that preventing us from panning and being able to legibly pick up the consoles on the individual
guess
desks?
I'm not
of
a-
WebEx?
I'm not aware of an issue. I think the cameras pan to the members in the,
Not quite.
boardroom.
We'll often just
So-
see the
so-
agenda or the
So
slide.
Julie, it depends on, and if you're talking in the county boardroom, is that where you're talking?
Yeah.
So in the county boardroom, if I turn my mic off here, the camera should go to
That
you.
doesn't always happen.
Well, that's because maybe the person isn't always turning the mic off. And that just
compare our meetings.
That just happens.
Several years ago.
Right.
We really need to.
So basically also what Mike had said about about voting, we had never wanted to do that. We always wanted to do a voice vote. And I'll tell you this one thing, sometimes when people vote, like I know I say, when I even motion in that, I'll do motion O'Gala, second Williams. Some people don't say anything, or they'll just say it very quiet. Second O'Gala. You need to speak. You need to use your voice so that it can even be picked up. And I don't know that we wanted to do the vote by that. Plus, I'm not sure how that works with our one meeting. So that's something we would just to look in next year, because Mike is right. Our WebEx expires next year. That's a decision we'll have to make. Will we keep WebEx? Will we go for something else? Will we go with YouTube? Because we put our stuff out on YouTube now. We'll have to see. What did, it's not, I'm not getting anybody on. It should, if I hit next on, it's not going on. There's too many. It's not working.
No, there should be.
It should be exclusive.
Oh, I turned on. Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
what I wanted to add was the last meeting, there was a lot of confusion with a couple votes. Didn't know who voted what. There was confusion, and it happened, I think, at least twice. So I would recommend, and this is what DuPage County does and many other counties, the clerk, when the county board member votes, the clerk repeats the name and the vote. Takes a little extra effort, but it'll be clear, it'll be concise, and it'll solve the problem. Because if the camera's not panning on the board member to show and record what the vote is, this way, the person at the dais hears, okay, Berkowitz, no. Mueller, yes. It's clear, it's concise, it solves the problem. And I would make that recommendation that we do this from now on in our county board meetings, because it just was a little embarrassing to see the confusion with a couple of those votes. And nobody knew who voted what. So this way we can avoid that, because we do have people take a look at our videos and our recordings, and I think it's something we need to try to improve on. So I bring it up now because I think this is the best time to do it.
Okay, Julie, so that's something we're not gonna be able to do here. We have to have a conversation outside. Mike does not, he doesn't work.
Lucky for you, I don't take the votes or read them after the fact.
Right. It's not, it's the clerk's thing, so we'd have to have a conversation with the clerk's office for that. Okay, all right, let me go back to my list here. So roof is done. Okay, so we have 2, 3, ICT.
ICT, I know some members of the board and board staff were on some of the Zooms and follow-ups last week and 2 weeks ago. Kind of going through what we've learned from the survey and their analysis of our websites and interviews. Next steps for this project, we're going to be sitting down with the countywide elected officials to make sure that everyone's questions are answered, get everyone as engaged as we can to be on the team for a unified county website, and with the goal of a completion date for the consulting side of this project, late November, and then with an RFP to be ready to go also in late November, but then we've got to take into consideration the holiday season for putting out an RFP. So I don't want to commit to a date on that, just to make sure that we keep following time frame, but late November, we're expecting to have an RFP ready to go.
Okay, it sounds good. And will there'll be a report from that? Could you provide us with like not here, give it a whirl, but
Yeah,
submit it?
I think everybody from the board who wanted to be included was included on those, and if not, let me know. But yeah, the initial or the additional interviews will just be countywide elected officials trying to get everybody on board and
Yeah, so,
answer any additional questions.
yeah, so that'd be good if you,
Yeah.
at the final of that, if you could send it
Yeah,
to this
definitely.
Kim, and then Kim could share it with the board. Then everyone has one thing. Okay, that sounds like a good plan. And yeah, we do have the holidays, and that makes it.
It always makes it difficult.
Yeah, it does, because everybody's gone somewhere else. Okay, software, HR.
So the first in-person training sessions for this are kind of introductory sessions will be the 16th, 17th of this month. On the 16th from 9 to 10 a.m., they will be doing introductions of who they are as a company and kind of what they have learned about Will County. And if anyone wants to attend that meeting, it will be here 9 a.m. on the 16th. Please just let me know.
And who did we end up selecting? I'm sorry.
It is called Dayforce, which is implemented by OnActuate.
Okay. Send that along,
Yep.
because I'm never gonna. Dayforce, you said?
Dayforce implemented by OnActuate. So Dayforce is the software, OnActuate's the company that does
OnActuate is the company
implementation.
for that. Okay. Right. Purchasing is complete. Budget planning is complete. Finance. Number 9, yep, no, number 8, sorry.
Eighth,
Finance.
so this is again, the 65 North group out of Arizona. They came in to start interviews and kind of are looking at best practices. I think December is when we were looking at a final report for implementation throughout the following year for them on best practices for fraud and risk management.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, December, and with the holidays, it might bleed into January, but we are looking to get everything back in those 2 months and then start implementation.
Okay, thank you. Next, moving on to, our 9 Osgood Street.
So I promised you some paper on that one. Pass it around here. You.
We're good students. We can take one.
We remember that. Remember that from school. Take one, pass it to the kid behind you.
And so just as,
There, and we'll give it to you.
yeah, I printed out 20. I think so.
Well,
Have some
some
spares.
people missing, so.
Yep. So just as a reminder on this, we, as the county, purchased this building from Pace for $1. It's 55,000 square feet, built in 1985, served as the Pace bus garage and bus storage facility, as well as their administration offices for their Will County operation. We've been negotiating with the city of Joliet on a lease arrangement with that. And so people were wondering the cost and return on investment, especially member Berkowitz. So I put this together for the county board. So we're averaging a little under 3,000 a month in utility costs. So we as a county have spent 39,000, give or take, in utility costs since the purchase of the building. Insurance costs, we just add this to the county's umbrella policy, so there's no additional cost to that, and we purchased the building for $1 again. And so we're right now at about $39,001 spent on this building. We're negotiating with Joliet. Joliet wants to move all of their fleet management operations over there. They are currently located just north of the county building, and they would look to relocate to that space instead, freeing up the Chicago street space for future development. So working together with Joliet initially to start the conversation, we worked with Joliet to save the county $72,000 in downtown parking expenses for our employees, and that took place in this current budget year. In the following out years, if we are to move forward, now obviously negotiations are still ongoing. The city of Joliet would be providing us 10 South Chicago Street, known as the Problem Solving Courts to us, which we currently lease for $100,000 a year for $1, saving us $99,999. And then that would include carryover of potential parking savings. In year 3, which would be 2 years out from now, Joliet is planning a fleet maintenance build out there. We currently spend as a county $4 million annually on vehicle expenses, vehicle related expenses, either purchasing, auto repair, fleet maintenance. So we would come to hopefully an agreement with Joliet to help us provide fleet maintenance and fleet management with the county. And it would be done at a by book value. I'm sure most of you are aware of that. Is when you take your car into a dealership for a warranty repair, there is a book rate on the parts, labor, and time that it takes that you pay, or the manufacturer then pays the dealership for your warranted claims. If we were to reduce our auto expenses at the county by 5%, which I think is conservative but doable. I did fleet management for the state of Illinois for a few years. It's very difficult to get things done appropriately, but a conservative estimate would be 5%. That would be a savings in year 3 of $210,000 off the county's vehicle expenses. Building those savings out over a 5-year period of time gets us a savings to the county of $1.449 million on a total expense of $39,001.
Okay, so who pays the utilities? Who will pay the utilities?
The tenant would pay the utilities.
Tenant would
It'd
pay
be a
the
standard
utilities.
lease.
All right, well, I just wanted to.
On that
make sure.
front.
And so the parking that we're saving on parking, and that is where are we parking?
That would be Ottawa Street.
Parking on Ottawa Street?
Yeah, and this was to accommodate the increase in jury trials that we're seeing at the courthouse.
Parking deck?
parking deck.
State's attorney doesn't need to pay.
At this point in time, they are not paying for parking. Sorry, Mary's question was state's attorney need to pay for parking. They are not currently paying for parking. But then, if the lease is something that is agreed upon by both sides, that is what we're looking at.
Go ahead.
When you say that the state's attorney is not currently paying for parking, they have a budget line item for parking and they just asked for additional monies to support that. So all of that will be taken out of the budget?
So this year, I think we were getting 90 spaces for free. We hope to continue that, but there's no guarantee.
Mary, if you could come up. I'm just wondering, how many parking spots does the state's attorney's office need? Thank you. Sorry.
I'm
And-
not sure. Beth Casper would have
Oh.
those numbers. So we had some people who have been always parking in the deck.
Correct.
And that is coming out of our budget. When there was a need for jurors, then a larger number was moved over into the Ottawa Street parking deck. And my understanding from what Mike said is that is not coming out of our budget, which would make sense because we didn't have any money in our budget for that this year. But I think it was our understanding that next year we would be responsible for paying for all that parking, which is why I sort of asked the question, like,
So
what
it
does that
appears-
mean for our budget next year?
Right, so it appears that they wouldn't have a need for that in their budget.
There are complicating factors with all leases. We have not come to a final arrangement yet, so I can't guarantee it. But that is part of our negotiation.
When do we think we'll have a final agreement?
We would hope to have something in place as soon as January 1.
Just want to make sure that I understand this correctly. So Mike, the 72,000 that you negotiated for the parking spaces in the Ottawa deck was done due to the need for additional jurors, correct?
Correct. And so we moved the state's attorney out of, I always get the lots wrong, but
A and
A
B.
and B over to the deck.
The jurors are parking in A.
Jurors are parking close to the courthouse, and also courthouse employees who are getting bumped from spaces by jurors parking in the wrong spot.
Okay, but so then that 72,000 saved would be the state's attorney's people parking in the deck. If they're no longer parking in A and B, so jurors can park there and moving to the deck, that 72,000 would be the savings for the people from the state's attorney's office parking there.
They were parking in A and B, which are county-owned lots, for free. Joliet was going to charge for the Ottawa Street
Right.
at their standard rate, and so that's the 72,000 that we are not paying for. But there are additional state's attorney spaces over there that have.
So we
been
had
paid
some
for.
spaces before additional employees were moved over. So I don't know what the breakdown is for that. I
Okay.
would have to, Beth Casper would have all those numbers.
Sure, I wouldn't imagine that you know. all those
Some
things.
people have that as part of their salary.
Yeah.
They get
So,
park.
so again, and I will say this again, it's just like, the reason we were told we needed to buy the Pace building was to move these other problem-solving courts, public defender, specialty courts into this building. That's why we agreed. And granted, it was $1.39,000, so $40,000 so far. And then now we've changed path as to how we're doing it. Basically, for negotiations with the city of Joliet to try and make a deal with them so that we get savings and they're getting the building and they're gonna pay for the cost of the upgrade. Because we know that the facility itself needs upgrades, right? It was however they had it before with Pace. So they're gonna pay for all that cost. So during this time then that they're leasing it, they're in our umbrella, the Pace building is under umbrella insurance. As the improvements get made, I would assume, and I don't know how the umbrella works, wouldn't the cost of the umbrella go up because the building now is worth more or no?
So with our umbrella policy, the answer on that one would be no. We add units in and out as we purchase buildings, but the umbrella, we have a very high umbrella limit, and you presume that, for lack of a better way to phrase this and not being an insurance expert, you assume that all the county buildings will not be destroyed or decimated at the same point in time, right? And so
I would assume.
that's how our umbrella works. You just add the property under the portfolio.
Okay, I see some other lights. Jim has his light on, and then we'll go with next, Sherry. Go ahead, Jim.
So Mike, thanks for the clarification on this and this information. This is good. So I do have a couple questions. We do have to look into those parking spaces and that issue that concerns me. But also too is infrastructure, Mike, like roof, HVAC and all that. Who's responsible for all that in this?
If we are to move forward on the same path that we are right now, Joliet will be paying for all the infrastructure upgrades to that building.
And they will maintain the
And they will
building and
ma-
the
building-
proper,
building
so
maintenance.
if it gets
Yep.
turned back over to us, at least we'll have a
Correct.
recapture clause.
Yep.
Okay. All right. And then also too, is I think that somebody from the county board should actually be a part of these discussions and negotiations early on, you know, from a contractual basis. I mean, I appreciate you giving us the update, but at the same token too, you know, it'd be good to have somebody from the board representing in these discussions.
Go ahead, Sherry.
Well, I just had a question for fleet maintenance. Don't we the highway, the Division of Transportation, don't they do their own maintenance?
We do at the sheriff's department and some stuff we do in-house at DOT, but not a ton. And so we own, just to give you a rough estimate, we own a little over 500 vehicles for the county.
Turned yourself off.
As-
Sherry wasn't done.
Yeah, as a former county employee and union president for those county employees, I'm aware of what the maintenance does over at the Division of Transportation, and I worked at the Sheriff's Department, so, yeah. But we do maintain our own, so that seemed like it was a little high. Just-
And so that would cover, expansion of maintenance. So, and then just a fleet management program, which would be implementing too.
So what you're saying, will the sheriff and the DOT still do their own maintenance? I'm assuming they would.
There's going to be union contracts in place that we will be obligated to do maintenance with those people.
What do you mean by, what are you saying by
Like the
that?
sheriff's has its own maintenance division. He has employees that are under a union and collectively bargain agreement to do maintenance there.
Oh, so they'll stop doing it wherever they're
No,
doing
they
it?
will continue doing it at the sheriff's department.
Right, so the only addition, and the DOT does it at their facility as well,
DOT does some of their own maintenance in-house, but not a lot.
not a lot.
Yep.
Okay,
And so you look at expanding the life of your vehicles, reducing vehicle purchasing through there, reduce maintenance costs through preventive maintenance planning.
well, I mean, we should be doing all that maintenance right now.
We do. It is, I don't want to say scattershot, but it's something that we can improve on.
Okay, Julie, you're on next, I think.
Thank you. Okay, so last month, the state's attorney told us that the county executive did not have the responsibility or the authority to pursue this. This would be a county board function. The use of the building, it came to us for purchase. We were told that this would be a purchase for the benefit of the county. This seems to be a City of Joliet project. We were told completely different uses, Will County government uses. We're hearing primarily City of Joliet usage for this building. I think that would have changed the nature of the vote at that time if we had understood the true intention of the purchase of this building. So again, why are we having this conversation? The county board has not been part of this in any way, and I think it needs to go back to where the county board is a part of this process. It can't be approving any contracts. There's nothing to review, nothing. It's all estimations and hopefully and ifs. And there's nothing in writing, and a contract is a contract. You don't sign it unless you've been able to review it and actually see what's going on. And Mary, I know you want to reply, but I will go back and listen to the recording for the state's attorney's comment, because there was a comment made. And to the best of my recollection, it was that this process, the county board should be a part of this process, and we are not. Thank you.
I don't recall opining on this particular building. I will say this, the county board absolutely has a role in purchasing the building. If a lease is entered into, that has to be brought to county board. You can vote it up or down at such time as the agreement with City of Joliet is brought forward for your review, but the negotiation is an executive function, and that appropriately is with the executive's office. Once a building is purchased, the maintenance and administration of that building is clearly under the purview of the county executive. So just to be clear.
Correct. And I understand that. So my next question is, what happens in year 6?
What happens in year 6? Well, it depends on the term of the lease, correct? But, this would be something where, in my estimation, at this point in time, right, at the end of the first initial term of the lease, the county would still own the Joliet facility, Joliet used facility, right? And so you'd have the same leverage points that you would have in this current negotiation.
Yeah. So again, like I said, I'm going to go back to the fact that we were told one thing and something completely different happened. And right before we voted on it, still very new in my role here, and half the people on the board were new. I remember the executive making a comment saying, well, we only have to keep it 5 years, and after 5 years, we could sell it. So to me, it seemed like it's just, as I said last month, a pawn in a chess game. And the most bothersome thing is that the county executive just wasn't honest with the board as to what her intentions, Mike, I'm still
I
talking
will
here.
let you finish.
So as to what the intentions were for that. At that time, we knew that the city of Joliet was interested in it to bring their fleet maintenance that was scattered throughout the city, and some of those buildings were in disrepair, and they wanted this building. They were offering twice as much, $2 to pay for it. But we decided to move forward as a board and vote yes, because we felt that the executive had brought forward a plan. Her employees walked through the building with us and said, hey, we're going to go take this building. We're going to leave this as maintenance. We can run our DOT trucks through to get the salt off because there's a bus wash in there. Makes sense to me. And then we'll be remodeling the entire structure to put in our three different rental units. So we're only saving on the one rental, not the two. And while I understand the fact that we would have to put in significant amount of money to do the renovation, to bring those in, I understand that. The whole thing is just, all along we've asked month after month after month about this building, and we've heard, well, we're still in negotiations. Now I'm glad we're having the whole picture here that you gave us, and that's really good. And I would guess that after year 5, we're going to sell the building to the city of Joliet, because we can sell it after the 5th year. And maybe not. I don't know exactly what will happen. That board isn't sitting here today. So that it's bothersome to me that when I have a conversation with another elected official, or anybody for that matter, I expect that when we're having a conversation, that the conversation is true and transparent and honest. And this hasn't been from the very beginning, and that's bothersome.
And so I'm going to take some time to respond to that. And so the Pace building was initially brought to Joliet for purchase. They passed on the purchase of the building. The county saw a great opportunity there. And what did we first look to do with it? We looked at what can you use this building for? One, it cost $1. I'll just remind you, that's 100 pennies that we paid for this building. 20 nickels, I think if my math is correct, 10 dimes, $1. And so this $1 building was something that we looked at as an asset for the county, something close to our downtown footprint. We brought in agencies and departments across the county as to what we thought could best fill that space. Joliet had a change in leadership. They expressed interest in that space. That was no surprise to anyone who's been on this board. I think we had talked about a demising wall inside the facility, So anyone who says that Joliet wasn't an initial part of the conversation, that's just a fallacy.
No, I didn't, Mike, I didn't say that.
I want to be very clear on
I
that.
knew that we had
I
talked
believe
about
you were there
Joliet
with
doing
Joliet being
maintenance,
there. Yeah.
doing maintenance.
Correct.
Just the maintenance portion of the building was all we talked about. We never talked about the entire building going to,
Correct. We did not. We did not.
never did.
And so plans change over time, right? Joliet comes up with some better alternatives. We start looking at different space. So, and then to give you an example, right, the coroner moves out of the space at the Recorder of Deeds office. We are able to facilitate moving some of our land use staff down there, reducing our footprint in the executive center, which holds the public defender's office. So it doesn't have this much pressure on us to move the public defender space. When it comes to probation, we're looking at changes in the state's attorney probation building that would allow us to alleviate the pressure to move probation out of that space. And so I find it hard to sit here on a building that we spent $1 for, that we have laid out a plan to save $1.4 million for the county over 5 years. And we are talking about why aren't we investing $4 to $5 million in a building that at the end of the day is what this county has sadly done for many a year, which is try to fit a square peg into a round hole on space needs. And so we're just not going to do that.
So here's the thing, you can say what you said and you massage words really well, but the point doesn't change from the fact that we knew that Joliet was interested in that building at the time we were convinced to purchase that building for $1. Like I said, they offered a second. We had first right of refusal. I remember that conversation being had, not that Joliet had it first. No, we had first right of refusal. That was my memory on this. I'm sure that was in many conversations. And then to say, we're not going to buy a building to put a square peg in a round hole or whatever. Well, you knew that from the very beginning that was the intention here. You knew that. The executive knew that.
No,
So my complaint is, Mike, this is the way this whole administration has been run. You cannot trust it. It's not transparent. You hear one thing and then something else is being done, and a lot of bait and switch goes on a regular basis. So you can sit there and say whatever it is, but the facts are the facts and you can't change the facts. And yes, okay, so with this agreement here, we will save $1.4 million. We don't know what's happening after year 5. That'll be determined at some future time. But in the same breath, if we had purchased this building and done the modifications, which we were told we could do, it would be feasible to do. And yes, it would have cost more money. At the end of the 5 years, we would have a building that would fit the needs, and we would not need rental for 3 of our offices. Because we're still renting 3 offices at this point. Still be.
And so to reiterate, problem solving courts, we are reducing that rent to $1. We are accomplishing the goal, right? If you want to plan further than 5 years, I'd be more than willing to hear you out, but I feel like this is a good 5-year plan. We are moving part of our land use department to the Recorder of Deeds space, which allows the former coroner, reducing our need to move public
Which
defender.
is true, but that has nothing to do with the Pace building at all.
Yes, it does, because you are talking about the rental space. So I'm giving you an answer as to what
But I
changed
was
with the rental.
specific to the rental space that we were talking about moving into the Pace
Correct.
building, not other rentals.
We were talking about the 3 Ps, problem solving.
Right.
We reduced the rent to $1. Probation, we are moving parts of land use into the old coroner space, reducing our need for rental there for public defender. We will be reducing our rent footprint by approximately $80,000 a year, but that just hasn't happened yet because our lease hasn't expired and the renovations are not complete. Probation, we are utilizing second floor space over at the state's attorney's office to alleviate the needs for moving probation, eliminating at least a 3 to 5 year need, probably longer, to move probation into a rental space because they are no longer busting at the seams in that building once renovations are complete. And so that eliminated our need to do any of the rental items that you are talking about. Once again, we bought this building for $1. There is an opportunity to save money because we bought the building for $1. I am just kind of shocked that a building that costs $1 that you can use to negotiate and save you money is such a point of consternation for this board that seems very much focused on saving as much money as possible, but yet hasn't done much to do that.
Hasn't done much to do that. All right, we could talk about the budget last year if you'd like to, but so all the moving that we did with the coroner's office and land use and things like that, that could all be done whether we purchased the Pace building or not. So You can talk about that and throw it in here, but it really is not part of this conversation. The point of the matter is, and it's very true, that this has been a decision that was made by the executive, not forthcoming from the very beginning of time. It was not forthcoming to work on and negotiate.
I
And I'm gonna be done
need to
talking
stop you
here.
there because it was forthcoming at the time. I hate to break it to you, but plans change in government and we got a better plan. Plans change.
That's what you say, but I know that's not the truth. The truth was all along the.
I don't know where
point of
you're
order,
getting this truth from. Now, that is incorrect.
that You're not, no.
If
When
you
the
want,
county
if,
executive said that we could sell this building and we only had to keep it for 5 years, we need to get it now because the city of Joliet wants it. The true intent is there. You don't have to see it. People in the room don't have to agree with it, but that is the true intent. So I am done discussing that project. We can go, project, we can go ahead. Oh, I didn't see you, Sherry. Go ahead.
Well,
Oh,
I
he just
appreciate-
turned it on.
I appreciate the fact that we did get the building for $1. I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is that there seems to be some either lack of communication or miscommunication. So when you're told one thing and then it turns different, and as you say, plans change all the time, but when they do, usually there's some communication of that fact. That didn't appear to happen here, and that's what the issue is. The county board, even though the county executive manages the buildings and everything, but as we know, the money has to come from the county board in the first place. So if we're involved at that level, and this seems to be in short supply around here, though, a common courtesy would dictate that some communication with the county board would occur. That didn't occur. This is why we're having this conversation. I appreciate buying a building for $1. I also would have appreciated moving all of these departments into the old courthouse before we demolished it. But yeah, that's another issue. But we didn't do that. We're doing this. Communication is the key.
Yeah, I mean, I understand plans change, business plans change. Sometimes you have to change directions abruptly or that, but I'm sure the people on 143rd Street would like to have those plans changed too, so.
Okay, anyone else have anything they'd like to add? All right. Okay, now we'll move on to number 11, update. Do you have any documentation for this for the RFQ for facility needs assessment?
can we not skip 10?
Oh, I did
Okay.
cross it off, sorry. Thank you, Mike.
Sure.
1300 Copperfield, the old Silver Cross property. Thank you.
So this project, we have Leggett Engineering Architecture Firm is going to be engaged on it. We had, let's call it 10 days ago, our first sit down kind of formalized with the VAC as to what exactly they were looking for. And I know the executive director's here. We had what I would consider she did?
It was.
I missed her. She was, yeah. We had a great conversation as to what they're looking to do in the building. And I think it gives us the model going forward as to what space they are looking to build out, not only for VAC, but for their partner agencies. The Illinois Department of Veterans Affairs, they think will want some space in there. The feds are nearby, but they would probably take some space in there too. And then some outreach organizations for veterans as well. So we had a great first conversation with that. It's going to allow us to kind of develop a footprint and let us figure out the space needs that we're going to have to fill in that building in a future date, or what we'll have available to fill in that building in a future date.
So you got like an estimate of what they will need, or that we're still figuring that
And
out?
we're still
right?
figuring it out, but to give you a rough guess right now, the basement floor, if you know where the gym, quote unquote, would be down there, it would be the gym space. There are some offices across from the gym space downstairs that we were thinking of turning into, I don't want to call it just a meeting space, but like a large room where they could do not only VAC meetings instead of having to jump all over the county, though I do think that's beneficial as well, but also have like info seminars for veterans in that space. And then the first floor space, use that not only for administration, but for mental health services and partner agencies and departments.
Right, no, I think.
So yeah, so like the first 2 floors, give or take, and then potential add-on here and there.
Great, so we can just continue,
Yep.
get an update on that. I think that's a great plan. I like to see that we'll use that building. I know where it's located is in close proximity to other things that the vets need. And I know the current, I don't know if they call him president or director of the VAC, he is following and going along with the same things that the previous one had come, because that's the definite need. And to put all those things for our vets in one
Yeah.
spot, that's an
Yeah, and
excellent. I
I
see you just a second.
hoping Jen was still here, but we went to the VAC meeting last Tuesday. They had a meeting in New Lenox to discuss this plan. And they have a great turnout and a great group of core veterans that show up for these VAC meetings and are very engaged. And so it was good to kind of lay it out to them, the project, and what it could potentially look like for them. And the new, I think the title is President, Mr. Shaver, was very supportive. He's been great to work with. The former president was great to work with too. He was there at the meeting last Tuesday as well.
So we have to come up with a name of the building, because we can't just keep calling it 1300 Copperfield or the old Silver Cross. We'll eventually come up with a name for the building.
Yeah, and this is going to be such a unique project. I believe it'll be the first in the state for sure that is going to be a dedicated space like this for a county VAC. And they're doing a little research over there, but it might be a first in the nation project for us to get this level of services under one building for veterans outside of the Federal Veterans Administration hospital system.
Yeah, so I think in one respect, we had that building for a very long time. They talked about, they bought it for whatever needs, and then no one could get the executive could never get anybody to move over there. So that never happened. So it was kind of a good thing that we waited, and the VAC had these needs and had done the work behind to get it
Yeah,
going,
and
which
the
is great.
VAC has been great to work with, and they've come to the table with a lot of wonderful ideas.
Yep.
So,
And that still will include temporary housing too, right?
that's like a TBD on this one. The dream is, but that will require a lot of cooperation, zoning changes. You need 24-hour staffing. We're looking into grants, not only locally, but federally with how that'll work. There's just a lot of, I don't want to say costs associated with it, but we just got to make sure that the financial plan for that is sound
Sure.
and logistically planned well.
Yeah, it sounds like we have a fabulous project here. Julie, go ahead. You had your light on?
Thank you. Two things. Can we make sure that this, on the previous item, this is attached to the agenda so the public can review it? Thank you. Second, it says here that the county executive had a recent tour of the facility. I don't know if county board was included. I didn't know anything about it, but I would really appreciate the ability to see the building after all these years. Have never, ever been able to see it. For me, I'm a more than just a visual person. I really can relate to things when I get to experience it. So I don't know how other board members feel, but I would really like to be able to see.
Yeah,
building.
member Berkowitz, if you want to put together a group that stays within the bounds of something you can discuss county business on, we'd be happy to get a tour over there.
Right, and some people have had tours, so you just have to ask for a tour.
Yeah, if you've been over there before, it hasn't changed much, if at all. We've been very fortunate with that building for the amount of time it's been mothballed. It was medical grade construction, so it's held up very well.
Right, so if you guys want to have that tour, let Kim know, and even if they do a tour and a tour and a tour to keep it good for open meetings, we don't have to worry about it. Okay, so that sounds great, Mike. I'm very happy. That's great. Now we'll move to 11.
Okay.
I crossed it off too soon, sorry.
All right, so this is the RFQ for facility needs assessment. The RFQ was released shortly after the last executive meeting on September 16th. Responses are due the 29th of this month. I am happy to report that we have had 21 potential respondents reach out and or download the packet.
That's really great.
So
21.
yeah, it'll be 29th, and then review
Yep.
process will start after that.
Yeah, so the timeframe you gave us last month is still the same this
Yep.
month. That's excellent. Thank you for that. Okay. 21 respondents. Okay. Thank you, Mike.
All right.
Appreciate the information. Next, we're moving on to number 12, amending the Will County Code of Ordinances, chapters 31 through 35. So I see we have Mr. Phil Mock in the room. If you would like to please come up to the mic. Somebody had his light. I don't know. I can't. Oh, Micah, sorry.
That's
You
okay.
gotta let me know, because sometimes you got to turn the mic on after I'm done looking.
I have do we need a motion first or anything before we have discussion?
About the ordinance?
Yeah, about the ordinances.
Well, I hadn't gotten to that
I
yet.
know.
You guys stopped me with that.
And that's what I want to address.
So yeah, I
didn't know if
would,
needed to do that
but I
now,
had,
right?
I had finished what I was saying. and I
Okay,
said you
sorry.
had your light on. So, I was just doing my introduction, so.
Oh, wait.
Just that we have, the ordinance committee, ad hoc ordinance committee has finished these chapters, so they're brought forward today for us to review. And that's why Mr. Mock is here. So can I get a motion? Motion Mueller, second Berkowitz. Okay, so, Phil, can you hit your button so I can get your mic on?
The button that looks like a person.
Yep, there's a little person speaking.
You're fine.
All right. Okay, so take it away.
Well, the last time that these ordinances were reviewed was 2014. But what happened is the county board just passed everything that was in existence. And a lot of these ordinance, not particularly these chapters, but a lot of the chapters were written back more than 30 years ago, 40 years ago. So we went through them one by one. I checked with various department heads, elected officials to deal about making sure what we're doing is what we're still actually doing, because we had a lot of ordinances in place where we were still calling people at Sunny Hill inmates
At
instead
Sunny
of,
Hill we were, my
yeah,
goodness sakes.
because Sunny Hill was originally
County.
a county poor facility.
Oh.
And they were considered inmates. And
Wow.
we had language like that still in our ordinances. So I checked all the statutes and we took it to the committee and discussed various things. They've agreed to various different changes. You can notice like in chapter, in chapter, I think it was 33, that we talked about there was participation in State Police Training Act. We were really under the Merit Commission Act, that we were using language that didn't really match what we were doing, so we're trying to get it together. This is these chapters they thought was sufficient to move on to you. There is no right or wrong other than us following the statutes. A lot of it's policy driven. Whatever policies you want to make, they can be amended to.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of it was merely cleanup. And some of the things we had to change and take out, and a lot of it had to do with the changing of the duties between the executive and the county board, because we now have a county executive and we didn't have it when a lot of these were originally passed.
Wow, that's really old, huh?
Yeah, it had all of,
Hmm.
emergency management going through the county board as being their boss, when really it was the county executive under the change of government. And originally, some of these were even passed before the legislature decided to give elected office holders internal operations of their office. And so a lot of that had to be adjusted. I hope everybody on this committee takes a chance to look at the proposed changes. We made 2 copies. One had the strikeouts in the red for the new language. And then there was a clean copy for you to ultimately vote on. You're going to have to determine procedurally how you guys want to deal with it. If you want to have this committee review it all, or if you want to rely on the previous, your ad hoc committee. But I don't think anything's going to eventually get done until everybody gets on board with what we need to do. But we had to start somewhere, in the committees where we started.
No, I think everybody is on board with getting these changes made. I haven't looked at them. I haven't had a chance. I know we had the agenda for a couple days, but I've sat in some of those meetings, so I think that we're gonna hear some people here and then we'll decide
And
how we want to do it.
And Kim informed me earlier that Micah said that there's still some changes on here that aren't in here. And procedurally, you're going to have to determine, you have the right to move it forward you can make any changes here you want and move it forward, or if you wanted to set it back to the committee to do things, you could do that too. But it's your, your procedural call on what to do,
So I'd rather make the changes here and then.
then keep going forward.
Yeah, that way they can continue moving forward with what they have. So Mike, go ahead. Kim,
So
and then Mike.
my understanding, Mike, and if I'm wrong, just straighten me out, but is that the document that was moved forward does not contain changes that the ad hoc committee suggested. So therefore, it's not the document that they moved forward.
Okay.
That's what she advised me. So when you're talking about changes, they would be the changes that Micah would represent that were made by the ad hoc committee, but not included, right?
Correct.
Is that an accurate?
So, may I speak?
Yep, please.
So I was poor in my diligence. I was focusing on all of the other stuff I had to read last month and I didn't get to these and we did vote them to you guys. And so I went and spent some time going down that rabbit hole and looking at these to my notes. And I talked to a couple of people from the committee today and there were some changes that we were wanting that haven't been there. So I'm thinking maybe it needs to go back to committee again, unfortunately, so that these things can be
Updated.
funneled
Why couldn't
out.
we have updated them? I mean,
There was-
There's a lot. It's a lot, Judy. So the ordinance book is,
all right, yeah.
3 inches thick. It's every month you have to read a lot of legal mumbo
Yeah.
jumbo and try to get through it. And then we have to have the conversation. And a lot of times you're making notes saying, we'll revisit this, we'll revisit this. And it's hard to keep up with all of it.
Okay.
And so, I
I-
did that yesterday.
In defense of the committee too. They were procedurally how we worked.
Mhm.
If we discuss these, we put them into old business so they could be discussed again if we wanted to, then we'd move forward.
Correct.
When we determined we wanted to move some forward, the chairman, on my recommendation, said, well, let's pick a certain number. We don't want to do all of them at once. We don't want to do one at a time because we will run out of, we only have a meeting a month. We got to do more than one when we move them forward. Because we probably have 100 or more sections, that would take 10 years to do it that way. So I was under the impression that these were what we were moving forward because that's what they voted to move forward
Right.
was this language. And if you wanted to send it back to the committee to get a new way for the committee to handle it, which would be they would read every one from beginning to end in final form before they brought it forward. I thought that was done because they did vote on things. But again, it's up to you, or if you want to just take it from here going forward, it's whatever you
Yeah,
want.
I was expecting that. I know you put your changes in with the
Yeah.
wording like that.
Right.
They had reviewed it and said, change this
Right.
to something.
And we'd
I
make more
assumed that that's
changes.
what we were seeing today,
And
but it's
that's
not.
what I thought you were seeing today. And I sent it to the county board staff after they change it. And I assumed the staff, and they probably did, maybe not, sent it to all the committee members to double check. And I assumed that was done.
I feel so sorry because we did vote it for it to come forward. But I didn't look through it fully. And that's my bad. I don't know about any of the other committee members. I can't speak for them.
Yeah, no.
But I don't want to send something on if there's a potential to have it not right.
So probably what we need,
And
probably
so,
what
yes,
we
I
do
do
is a
need to work
change.
better.
Well, we need to do a change in the process in what we do. So you review a section, you say, oh, let's change line 4 to apple instead of orange, okay? And you do all that, but then the next month, that isn't changed yet, right? You've made the note, but it isn't changed yet.
Right.
So I would say that what you should,
Sometimes even those things it takes more than 1 month to get the answers. It's can be very confusing sometimes as to what all is there. And like I said, I went through my notes. I've talked to a couple other committee members. They have the same recollection as I do. And my suggestion would have to be to send it back because I don't want to send something on forward and speak for all of my committee all of the other committee members, especially since, Mr. Logan isn't here today, to pipe in just to what he would like to see happen. So
And
I apologize.
Madam Chair, and we do probably have more done than 31 through 35 by now. If you send it back, they could review each one individually, make sure that it's the final vote, make sure they're done. And there's nothing wrong with when there's one or two word changes. What was the procedure before us? It'd take a month because they'd send it to me and I was doing the clerical work too. But what could happen is just what like happens in every other thing. If they need to change one or two words, they could do a motion right then. The county board staff could mark it in and change it if they voted on it, and then that document would be ready to go forward from that day forward, and we wouldn't lose as much time.
That's what we need.
That's what.
Yeah.
Obviously.
But when we first started, it was so much different. You could see so many strikeouts and stuff that it was easier for me to do all the paperwork. But I think now they're all in a certain enough form that the changes should be so small, they could vote on them item by item and have it incorporated immediately
Okay.
into the change.
Mhm.
Yeah. There are several lights on. I think it was Julie, Sherry, Katie, maybe. No?
Okay, thank you. So I understand, I agree that I think this should go back. However, before that happens, I'd like some clarification with one item, and also we may want to have some feedback from the executive committee on this particular paragraph before it goes back to the ordinance committee. If everyone could look at item A and go to page 4. Phil, I'm looking at,
What chapter would that?
it's number A and it's page
31.
4, which is 31. Oh, I moved my screen. So 3106, item C. It says the county executive will supervise the use of county office space. Any request for space by any county official, elected office holder, or department head shall be filed in writing in the office of the county executive. Requests will be approved or denied within 2 weeks. The county executive has the right to reassign space as needed. Does that include the Will County Board?
Yes, it's part of the statute.
I make a well, I
It's a
would
state
like,
law that she controls the building. You can change that, but it won't be legal.
so is there a way to give the county board more, I mean, that could
would-
be very,
Absolutely, we can get a change to the executive form of government legislation.
Right,
I
you
make
would-
that happen in Springfield.
Right.
but other than that,
No, you'd have to have Springfield change it. They're the ones that they're the ones that gave the executive the authority to control
Yep,
all the facilities.
Special legislation.
and she's controlled all the facilities before even
Not
Senate
just
Bill
her, everybody
1015.
has.
Right, they've always
Just making it
taken
match
care of
what the
it.
law says.
So when Larry was here, he did the same thing. He was in charge of the
And
building.
same with Mr. Mikan and same with Mr. Edelman.
Yeah, so that's nothing new. But that's nothing new here.
But that was one of the positions where I wanted our ordinance to match what the statute says. Because our ordinance didn't match what the statute said. Statutes supersede ordinances. And again, you could pass the ordinance and put that language in, but it would not be enforceable or wouldn't mean anything. Because you don't have the authority to
Change it.
countercede the state statute.
Yeah, and you didn't really change much in there. You just-
No,
No. So that's the executive form of government. Whenever the decision was made back in the day to change from township form of government to executive form of government, this happened. So, okay, Sherry.
And just to piggyback off of that, of course, we could all just get along and then we probably wouldn't have that issue. But, so,
Try and make that happen.
so, yeah, well,
You can have an office in the basement or a broom closet, you choose.
well, again, getting
well,
along has its
no,
privileges.
there is some difference. So you need to know this. They control it.
Sure.
If they did try to give you only a broom closet, you could sue them and go to court and saying they're not reasonably exercising their authority. There is a mechanism to fight that, but you would have to get an independent arbitrator, a judge, to determine That it was not merely, I just want more, or I just want to be on the top floor instead of the bottom floor. But if they didn't give you any space at all or limited you, it's the same thing any elected office holder could do. They could go to court and say, we're not allowed to perform our statutory function because the executive won't let us. So there is a safety catch.
That's good to know. And again, there is something to be said for getting along. But as far as this goes, I was talking to Micah earlier and she's right, because there's a couple things that I missed. It's a lot of information to go over, so sometimes things are gonna go back and forth. So going back to committee, I think is a good idea.
That's
Okay.
all I was gonna say is
Katie?
I'd rather it go back to committee and let's get it right before we, have another 30 years before they're looked
Well,
at
the good thing
again.
is you have at least the
Right.
initial changes, so you can read through that, and then that next time should be, well, now you're going to page 10, we just changed this kind of thing, and so that would be good. And
And-
so going to court is a great thing, but that means the state's attorney has to determine that there's a conflict of interest, which the state's attorney does not want to do. Therefore, I could be in a broom closet if I so choose to
And-
do that.
Madam
Instead, I'm sharing office space.
Another,
Go ahead.
another question or suggestion I would ask. But it's your call because it would involve your staff. It goes to the committee now. But there's some board members that may be interested in what's going on that aren't part of the committee, and some do show.
Sure.
But maybe when all this stuff, all the paperwork, maybe could get sent to all the board members so they could be looking
yeah.
at it in advance instead
Yep.
of just the committee. That might be helpful to everybody.
Eventually we do, it'll be, because if it's attached to the executive agenda, they have access to
Right,
all
they
of
do now,
that.
but I mean, even earlier, if there was something, you know what I mean? After I have a lot of it already printed out that only has went to the committee so far, and I didn't know if you, and I can send it to them myself, but I wasn't going to because it's assigned to the committee. But if it's something you think everybody might want to look at, we could do that. It is.
I mean, I think we can do that, like, anybody can go to the meetings. Even the ad hoc courthouse now, we have recorded. We
Okay.
weren't doing that, we do
And they
that
can
now.
access the paperwork on it if they needed to?
The paperwork's attached to their agenda.
It's on they could get a copy of the agenda. Okay.
I believe what Phil is talking about is the working document of the entire set of Will County ordinances for review prior to the committee addressing them.
Right,
That's
at the
what
sa-
he's
or at the same
No,
time.
no,
All right.
we have the committee to do that,
Okay.
and anybody can attend if they want. And now,
right.
like I said, we're recording the ad hoc so they can watch
No, that's good.
those.
Just trying to get more information out
Yeah,
faster.
no, okay. So then if I could get a motion to send this back to the ad hoc committee. Motion Mueller, second Parker. I think we need a roll call. Right, right. Right. It's all been informational.
Parker,
Yes.
Berkowitz,
Yeah.
Dean Schlattman,
Yes.
Freeman,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Pretzel,
Yes.
Richmond, Williams,
Yes.
Ogalla,
Yes,
motion passes.
thank you. Okay, thanks, Phil. And,
Thank you.
thank you, Micah. I'm glad you went and looked. I know there's always so much reading. I know that for sure.
You know, between that and the budget book, it's, good nighttime reading.
This is it. and I didn't print very much, but it's only-
It's a couple pages. Right, right. Okay, you guys, I just want to, I'm going to give it under announcements. Next thing we have is all our committee assignments. You see them here. I don't know if there's going to be any changes made. I don't believe so. I don't have any new business right this second. Do what?
There's something on there.
You asked for discussion on solar.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to make it longer for you.
No, it wasn't on my one agenda. Okay. Discussion on the solar energy facility ordinance. So here's the thing with this, what's happening right now is we have our solar facility ordinance the way it is. And I've been having conversations with the soil and water group Frankie sits in on some of those when he's able to attend, and land use. And we've come to notice that there could be a change that could be made. That what we found is some of these things where if the solar company has purchased the property, okay, they don't always continue to farm it. So they leave it empty. So then they go through all the steps to move to the next phase. But in the meantime, weeds can grow up, and we've had a lot of trouble with that. So I just want to let you guys know that we're looking at, and we'll be working with land use to say, get the soil and water involved sooner rather than later. And they are starting to work on that through soil and water. And I can tell you, most solar companies are very favorable to doing that. And even if they're leasing from a landowner, it works to say, let's see if they're not planning on planting a crop, then we'll go ahead and put in a cover crop. So kind of getting that, so that way when they go and they start doing things, we have something to work with. Because some solar properties, the soil has not been good, and then now we have one in Moni, it's just nothing but a clay pile. And if we had done a cover crop, I mean, granted, some cover crop would have been disturbed from putting all the solar in, but at least we wouldn't have this terrible situation. So it's a unique situation, but since it's unique, we need to address it because it could happen again somewhere else. So that'll be coming through Frankie's group, but I want to let you guys know that we've been having these meetings, and they've been very beneficial because solar and water wasn't sure of all the different things. Land use wasn't sure. So we've all learned in this process. Hopefully we'll have another one set up at some point because we need to move to the next stage with that. And it's just fine tuning things. And like I said, most solar companies are willing because they want to get the project right as best as they can. Because if they don't, then they're in trouble with the EPA and things like that. So that was my discussion there. But Micah, go ahead.
Thank you. I think this is a good idea because I know that this has been brought up several times. It's not going to change the state law any, but like you said, some of the solar companies do check with our ordinances first to kind of hopefully have a smoother sailing in. So do you have a timeline or as to when this ordinance may be changed?
So no, because we need to set up the next meeting with the land use, and then hopefully we're having a committee of the whole, special land use. What are we doing for the special meeting for land use to go over a couple things that we can't get at the land use committee meeting because of all the projects that are coming through that will address changes for the solar guidelines. So,
and then, well, the state's attorneys have to look at it before bringing it I'm just trying to get the
so the solar,
procedures
they
down.
can look at it, but the fact is the solar guideline is simply this. You're coming as a company to put in a solar facility, right? Most solar companies I have found really want to work with us to get it done, right?
Right.
So they're going to look at this orange note and they're going to say, check all these boxes. So when they come to before the board, it makes sense. So that just will get them in touch with soil and water earlier in the process rather than later. And I think that many will comply. Now, you might find out some don't want to because it's not state, which we can't make them. But then when they come to the board, they have a harder time because, wait, you didn't do this and you didn't want to agree to that. They may find that they get denied. So I think it's good and it's beneficial. And like I said, land use, because I mean, we're just doing way more now, right? So land use had some things that they didn't know about. I didn't know about some things that happened. Like for instance, there's a self-reporting thing. So if Frankie's building a solar facility, he can self-report on some of this stuff. And we found some issues there. So it's like just trying to work out some of the kinks that we found, and then soil and water, getting them involved sooner. Now they still have to do the conservation plan and everything, but it's like almost like a pre-conservation plan in a way that everything will be better and we can manage it better. And then having soil and water help us do some of the oversight on those things rather than staff, because staff doesn't have the expertise that soil and water does for that.
So if we're making changes, is it possible to also add in there to use native plants? Because I
Well-
know the Forest Preserve brought that forward to us as well. And we've been asking the companies, but it's not, I don't think it's part of the ordinance.
So
right
they
now.
get a list from Soil and Water of what to use, and they would all be native species because that's what grows well here.
So we can't put that in part of the ordinance change as far as, you know,
It's sort of,
Part of the recommendation from Soil and
yeah. And so they do that. They all put in the native and some add pollinators, but you need the native species to hold the ground and the pollinators supplement.
right.
Except for the areas where we're gonna have sheep grazing, then I'm thinking you're just gonna do grass, right?
Well, the Forest Preserve was having a problem with some invasive plants next to their
We would,
forest.
yeah,
preserves.
we would, yeah. no.
So, okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Frankie.
So what we're finding is these solar companies, almost all of them, they're trying really hard to get a positive recommendation, and they'll do pretty much anything we ask to get that positive recommendation. If we said we want you to put a nice sidewalk around the place for people to walk, they'll do it. Like they really want our recommendation. So I've encouraged the other committee members to provide a list to staff of these are the questions we're going to ask you when you come. These are the people we want you to meet with before you come. If you have ideas, please turn that in. You can email it to Dawn, CC me, and we'll get it on there if it's something we agree with. But they really are putting their best foot forward. I feel bad when we say no, but sometimes you got to say no. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
Like this last one, we're really struggling with it. Those ones in Green Garden, we've really struggled with some of the locations they're picking. The one in Shorewood, you may remember, we voted down. There's not much they can do to change our mind on that because for different reasons, we just don't think it's a good spot for it. But this goes to any county
special
board
use
member.
permit
Yeah,
or
if you guys
permit, yeah.
have something that you think is important to you, send it to the committee or get it to Dawn and we'll entertain it.
Yeah.
But most of them are going to say, yeah, if it's not unreasonable, they're going to try to make it happen.
Right. And once we have the solar ordinance done, which we're going to try and get it done this month, so we have something to start with. Because otherwise we ask the same, so however many solar companies come forward that day, we ask them the same 17 questions or however many. With this way, they'll get a list and they'll answer the questions, hopefully. So you have and say, oh yeah, they talked to the township road commissioner, they got approval, blah, blah, blah. We'll see all that. So you can, like Micah is a great reader, I know, and she could look up all that beforehand and say, oh, the only thing they didn't do was number 17. Why didn't they answer that? You can ask that question. So it's trying to move the process along faster. And so I hope we can get this solar ordinance reviewed and approved. And it'll be a working document because we're always learning something new with solar, and solar will continue to change, technology changes. So we'll be tweaking it, but I think it's just a good platform to start from. So thank you for that. I had a different agenda that didn't have number 18. Okay, so going on from there, committee assignments. You guys have your assignments. I don't know that anything else is changing. Then moving to other new business. Sure, Micah.
I'm sorry.
That's
on a
okay.
roll today.
That's all right.
Public Health and that's so much. Public Health and Public Safety Committee has nothing listed right now.
Why?
Is there, was there a extension for the outside of Will County nursing home residents continuation resolution coming forward this month? No, okay. But then it's gonna be in the future, I do believe.
And what about I wanted to have an update from the health department and the good food. It's just a presentation. That's right. Okay. Yeah, you'll have an update. They will be there, yes. And that goes to our resolution we passed at NACO for Good Food for All, how we're building on it. That was like step 1. Find out what the health department is doing is kind of step 2. And then I hope to get a presentation forward for a Will County Quality of Life Plan, which would incorporate all that so that we can have a good basics here where we have, like I said, we learned so much with COVID. And one of the things was we want to have a local sustainable food source. All of us here want to have a great place for everybody to live in Will County. and just working towards a goal like that. Okay, thank you, Micah. So I guess they didn't do that, but if she needs to, yeah, and she can always put it on in as emergency if she wants to, if we find out we need, she's not here today. Okay, other new business. I do not have any other new business. Request for state's attorney remains the same. Okay, so if I could get a motion to accept the committee assignments as amended. Motion Pretzel, second Berkowitz, previous Freeman, second Mueller, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Public comment, do we have any public comment? We had a bunch of people watching. It said 22 people watching. Okay, no public comments. Announcements and reports by the chair. I want to make announcement that if you had used the executives bathrooms recently, that's when you're in the county boardroom. Some people did go out. There's a change there. So now both the bathrooms can be used by anybody. So there's a note on, I haven't seen, is there a sign on the door? And then it's not a single stall because they didn't, yeah,
No, that's what it says. That's what it says on the door.
you lock it.
Somebody of the
Single use.
could walk in.
They changed them all.
Both of them.
It just says,
Just-
the sign says.
The sign says.
The door. It's just there. Yes, there's more than one stall in there, but it doesn't mean that one side's women and one side's men anymore.
Although I'll probably always use the women's side. I assume maybe the guys.
Have it.
But sometimes a bunch of us girls hanging out at the same time. So those are the only bathrooms that are changing like that, and now they have a lock on it. So if you go in and your nylons got bad, you can take them off and not worry about anybody coming in. Does anyone wear nylons anymore?
I'm gonna start it so cold.
Right. So Julia, then Jim, go ahead, put your mic.
Yeah,
Oh, you,
I-
that's why you raised your hand.
so I saw the sign today, but I didn't realize that made it an all-gender bathroom.
Yes.
So I'm just kind of confused. Is that in the whole building?
So all the bathrooms are exactly how they are. The two in the executive's office have been changed to that. That's it.
Okay, so there must be a reason. I'm not aware of it. I'm not quite sure what remodeling.
Well, you heard Mike said they're not remodeling that area.
Yeah, I mean,
We're
why
only
just
gonna do the
two
3
bathrooms?
stacks.
I don't know. There's no state statute that we have to do that, correct?
No, there's no state
Correct.
statute that we have to do that.
Okay,
The executive made the decision that that's something that we need to do to accommodate any needs we might have in the building.
okay.
So
So just lock it.
unless we,
So lock the
you
entrance
could, that's, I
door.
usually walk out here anyway, because I don't want to walk all the way down in front of everybody.
Okay. Thank you.
We love to talk
Back
about bathrooms at the county meetings. So that's, right, so I hope to have a committee of the whole for this Will County Quality of Life Plan. As we've talked a long time, we've had all these different resources available to us. Green ERA came and gave a presentation about what they're doing with food waste from restaurants, and they're generating, and how there's a need in the county for hemp processing, or hemp processors have to go to Texas. That's crazy. How with COVID, there was a trouble with trying to get your animals processed because the big facilities shut down. So looking at a smaller facility in our area so that Will County has so much ag land and so much capability we always focus on the industrial, and we focus on the manufacturing and our port. So it's like, we're more than that in Will County. That's why a lot of people move here. So taking that and looking at our ag land and saying, what's a better use for that? And you'll find out if you attend Micah's meeting, what the MAP Collaborative is doing with community gardens and other things in the county. It's pretty amazing what they're doing, and we're looking to partner with a lot of different groups. So I hope to have that presentation. I was hoping for this month, the end of the month, as a committee of the whole. We'll see how that goes. If not, we'll do it next month. And then get a resolution to say, hey, you know, this is what we want to do in Will County. We want to have a very robust county, including everything that makes Will County unique over other counties. So I have that as my announcement. And I know you guys like to talk during my announcement time. So do any county board members want to make an announcement? Okay. We don't have executive session. Mary left the room. Oh, okay. She says no. She heard. Yeah. Yeah, usually it's not. They'll tell me before, but okay, can I get a motion to adjourn? Motion by Pretzel, second by Richmond. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for attending today, guys. Good conversation.